Canada woke up today to one of the most shocking political and economic revelations of the year. Prime Minister Mark Carney has just exposed what he calls a strategic tariff trap, a calculated move by U.S. President Donald Trump that could reshape the entire North American economy. For months, Canadians have been watching the growing trade tensions between Ottawa and Washington with unease. But few could have imagined that, behind the scenes, a much larger and more dangerous plan was unfolding. According to multiple insiders within the Prime Minister's office, the Trump administration's latest tariff package, which targets key Canadian industries like aluminum, dairy, and automotive exports, was never about trade at all. It was a trap, carefully engineered to provoke a Canadian overreaction and set the stage for something even bigger. Mark Carney, who built his career as one of the most respected economists in the world, says he's seen this kind of move before, but never at this scale. This wasn't about tariffs, Carney reportedly told his senior advisors during a closed-door meeting in Ottawa. This was about control and leverage. According to documents leaked from Washington and verified by Canadian intelligence analysts, Trump's economic team allegedly circulated a memo titled North Star Strategy. The document outlines a plan to destabilize Canada's currency, create temporary panic in export markets, and then offer a new bilateral deal that would place Canada in a weaker negotiating position than it's been in decades. Carney's team quietly discovered references to this memo earlier this month, buried deep inside a series of trade documents shared through back channels between U.S. lobbyists and corporate advisors. What they found stunned them. The so-called tariff wave was designed to trigger a domino effect. Markets panic, Canadian investors pull back, and U.S. firms swoop in to buy undervalued Canadian assets. One advisor described it as economic chess with military precision. But the real twist came last night. Sources close to the Prime Minister confirmed that Carney had confronted the U.S. ambassador in a private call, demanding an explanation for what he called coordinated market interference. Within hours, the U.S. State Department denied everything, but quietly canceled 2 upcoming trade meetings. That's when Carney decided to go public. Standing before reporters in Ottawa this morning, Carney's tone was calm, but his message was explosive. Canada will not be manipulated, he said. If certain foreign actors believe they can weaken our economy through hidden economic traps, they will be proven wrong. The crowd of journalists erupted with questions, but Carney refused to elaborate further, leaving everyone wondering just how deep this trap goes. Behind the scenes, analysts say the warning signs have been building for weeks. Unusual trade data, sudden spikes in U.S. investor activity around Canadian resource companies, anonymous political donations linked to U.S.-based think tanks pushing for North American economic realignment. And now, Carney's revelation has added fuel to a growing fire. Economic observers note that Trump's tariffs were announced just days before a scheduled G7 follow-up summit, one that Trump later pulled out of without explanation. That sudden withdrawal now looks less like coincidence and more like part of a broader strategy to isolate Canada diplomatically before turning up the economic pressure. Some experts believe the trap may have begun as early as August, when the Trump administration abruptly reclassified several Canadian goods under new tariff categories. At the time, the White House described it as routine administrative adjustments. But newly leaked correspondence between trade officials suggests that these moves were coordinated in advance to create confusion among Canadian exporters, forcing them to reroute shipments and incur millions in unexpected costs. The most alarming part? A section of the leaked North Star memo, which has not yet been verified, allegedly outlines Phase 2 of the operation. It refers cryptically to something called Operation Reset, involving new restrictions on cross-border payments and possible sanctions on Canadian tech firms with Chinese partnerships. If true, this could represent the most serious economic confrontation between the U.S. and Canada in decades. Carney, however, is not backing down. Late this evening, sources say he convened an emergency session of the Cabinet Economic Security Council. On the table, a series of retaliatory options, including temporary tariffs on U.S. agricultural imports, a currency stabilization package, and even a classified diplomatic outreach to Europe and Asia to diversify Canada's trade dependency. According to one insider, Carney's words behind closed doors were clear and chilling. Trump wants to corner us. But he's forgetting one thing. Canada still has allies. The atmosphere inside Parliament Hill tonight is described as tense, almost electric. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle have expressed shock at the revelations. Some are calling for immediate sanctions against U.S. firms found to be colluding in foreign manipulation. Others are urging calm, warning that Carney's statements could escalate a fragile situation into a full-blown trade war. Meanwhile, south of the border, the Trump administration is staying silent. The president himself has made no public comment, but this morning he posted on Truth Social. Some leaders don't understand tough business. Canada will thank me later. That single line has sent analysts scrambling for interpretation. Was it a taunt? A warning? Or confirmation that this was all part of a long-term plan? Back in Ottawa, the Bank of Canada has reportedly begun quietly monitoring unusual capital flows, particularly large U.S.-based purchases of Canadian corporate debt. Economists fear that if the situation continues, the Canadian dollar could slide sharply, potentially triggering inflationary pressure heading into winter. And yet, there's an eerie sense among some insiders that Carney might be playing his own countergame. Multiple reports suggest that his government has been coordinating with key European partners behind the scenes, including Germany and France, to prepare a financial firewall against U.S. market influence. The plan, rumored to be called Project Evergreen, could include the establishment of a new continental reserve pool backed by allied central banks. If true, this could be one of the most ambitious economic countermeasures in Canadian history. Still, no one really knows how far this will go, or who's telling the full truth. The Trump administration's silence, combined with the strategic leaks from Ottawa, has created a fog of uncertainty across North America. Some experts are even questioning whether Carney's announcement was a preemptive strike, designed not just to expose the trap, but to flip it back on Washington. A senior official close to Carney hinted as much earlier tonight. Sometimes the best way to beat a trap is to let them think you fell into it. That line alone has set off a wave of speculation online. Could Carney be baiting the U.S. into revealing its next move? Or was this revelation itself a carefully timed distraction? A smokescreen for something much larger Canada is planning behind closed doors? As midnight approaches, one thing is certain. The Canada-U.S. relationship has entered uncharted territory. For decades, these two nations stood as symbols of friendship, trade, and mutual trust. But tonight, that trust is fracturing, replaced by suspicion, secrecy, and strategy. Was Trump's tariff war a masterstroke of economic manipulation? Or has Carney just outplayed him on the global stage? Neither side is showing its full hand yet. But behind every official denial and every diplomatic smile, the real battle for power, currency, and influence is already underway. And as one Ottawa insider ominously put it, if this really was a setup, it might not be Trump who springs the final